back on the sunny corner of Glenwood and Lunt. We are grateful for the sun after a very, very gray week. There's also, just so you know, there's another recycling and paper shredding event tomorrow, Sunday, at the Devon Bank parking lot. If you're like me, you missed last week's that was closer in our own ward, but this one's close enough. We also want to recognize and say rest in peace to James McCandless, a 68-year-old singer-songwriter. Tonight's WFMT Midnight Special will be devoted to him, all his music from 9 to midnight. That's at 98.7 FM. James McCandless sang on the stage at the No Exit many, many times. An extremely funny, intelligent, talented guy, gone too soon. Okay. We're going to welcome and start with our final guest here, who is very familiar to the Heartland Cafe in that, what? Did you meet your husband here or what?
Yeah, I started working here 15 years ago. 15 years ago, 1998, I started working here. I actually worked this shift. So I saw you guys doing this show for a long time.
Yeah, but this is the first time you listened.
Michael.
No, it's good. It's great to have you back.
It's great to be here.
Well, one of the things, Kathy McGroarty Torres, that happened a lot around here was the intermingling, if you will, and the getting to know one another of cultures under the roof at the Heartland, and there were a lot of Heartland marriages, whether they were cross-cultural or not, and babies.
Yes.
And we just love it when you and Inez's boys come in here and we get to greet their serious little selves. They are something else. And I know Inez might be listening, but Inez, get your butt back here. He worked here for many, many years, cooked a lot of good food. And
Eddie, you got to get up earlier. I see Inez in here with the kids eating.
Oh.
Yeah, so
yeah,
let's talk some
seen
politics here. Let's talk some justice issues here.
Indeed, indeed. So, Kathy, as a result of your family situation, you have become involved in something called American Families United.
That's right. That's right. I actually only recently got involved with them. I discovered American Families United just online. They're dealing with immigration issues that have actually affected our lives for a good 10 years now. But this was the first time I found an organization specifically representing my family. In our situation, my husband, Inez, who worked here for many, many years, was an undocumented immigrant. We got married 10 years ago, and I had presumed, kind of like most Americans, that getting married would fix his status.
Would do that.
That's what everybody assumes. We were unaware of the 1996 legislation, which essentially made it such that he, instead of receiving a visa, when we showed up for our interview in Juarez, he got a 10-year bar. So American Families United is dealing with these bars. It's a bar of inadmissibility. It can be 10 years, 20 years. There are permanent bars. There are many different kinds of permanent bars.
Is this arbitrary, or is there something written that says it must be 10 years? That's part of the 96 law?
It's part of the 96 legislation. So in our case, it was a situation where we had admitted on our paperwork that Inez had left the country. You might even remember that he had left the country sometime in the period after I'd met him.
I remember him getting the truck and loading it up and going back.
Yeah, well, that was us getting ready to go down and get married.
Oh, okay.
So when it came time, it was 2002 when we decided we were going to get married, we were going to go to Mexico. We were told it would be faster. We had very bad advice. We were told it would be faster and easier from Mexico. So we were like, we'll go hang out with his family down in Guerrero and then petition from there. So that was that. But in any event, going back to kind of how he got his bar, it was actually a case of multiple entries. So our paperwork revealed that he had left the country, that he had entered more than once illegally. So that's an automatic 10-year bar. But there are a lot of different things that can bring about a bar. One of the very prevalent one among American Families United members is the permanent bar for false claim to citizenship, which many, many undocumented immigrants entering the country, if they get caught, there's going to be some point when someone's going to ask them, are you a U.S. citizen? Or do you have a visa? And the moment they say, whether it's because a coyote says to say it or whether a sister next to them says to say it, if they say yes, because, you're trapped, that's an automatic permanent bar. So we have a lot of U.S. citizens who try to sponsor spouses who, because they have this false claim to citizenship on their record, they have a permanent bar from ever entering the country or even petitioning.
So, how many people, when you became aware of the American Families United, how many families or folks does this group feel like they're speaking for, if you know?
It's a really tricky thing to know.
Yeah, I bet.
In part because Homeland Security only keeps track of the number of total bars administered. We don't know what the sponsorship, why there was a sponsorship that was attempted. We don't know if it was because there was a spouse or it was for work or, this bar happens. They lay down the bar when you try to sponsor someone. So it's hard to know for that reason. So we don't know how many spouses like ourselves have been rejected. It's also really hard to know. I mean, like you said, there are a number of couples like us from the Heartland. And they're good friends of mine now. A lot of
Bringing
couples,
the federales right to our door. Yeah. I hope you're not listening out there. Okay.
Well, I mean, but it's every restaurant
We're all
in Chicago.
humans here.
We'll fight them off. We'll fight them off.
We're citizens of the
I've
world.
worked in enough restaurants to know that we are not
not
unusual
alone.
here. You know, but there are so many couples that they simply never even tried to petition. They never even tried to get a proper visa for the immigrant spouse,
Right.
knowing that all that was waiting for them was a bar. You
Right.
basically raised this big red flag. And
Exactly.
at this
Why would you put yourself in their eye?
Right. And
Yeah.
so, like in our case, Inez received this 10-year bar when we were in Juarez in 2003. And, we were left with this decision, like, are we going to live in exile or are we going to live separated? We were a newly married couple. We were ready to start a family. We wanted to have an organic farm in Wisconsin. We had all these ideas.
That's right. I
And instead
remember.
we were stuck having to decide, between exile and separation. So we ended up inventing a third route for ourselves, which was having him sneak back in one more time,
Yeah.
which is not ideal, but I couldn't accept that I had to choose, that my only options were living outside the country or living separated from him. Yeah, that's how it is.
It is. I actually visited with Inez in his hometown, the hometown of a
I've
number
seen
of
pictures.
people, and I rode his
original.
horse. He put me on a horse.
Was that the first time you were on a horse?
No.
Okay.
No. But I am a city kid, so I look funny on a
Probably
horse.
a bunch of ponies.
No, but it's kind of a little Garden of Eden, that the place that so many folks we know come from, the Torres, Najeras, y muchas más, and
Mendoza's.
yeah, exactly. It's very difficult to explain to others who that think, well, they should do things legally. What do you say?
Right.
What do you say to people who say, "Hey, my grandparents came from Ireland, like mine did"?
It's only
I mean,
been-
I don't know how legal they acted, frankly.
Didn't matter then, and they were white and they were Irish.
Aye, there's the rub.
And it really has been only in recent decades. I mean, this is the one thing. I only recently got involved with organized activism, but it's been 10 years that I've been explaining to people that
Yeah, I
there
bet.
is no line. This line, people keep saying, well, they should have just gotten in line. There has been no line for a long time.
That's right.
For people who are low income, I mean, you've seen where Inez comes from. Yes, it's beautiful. There's a lot of natural beauty, but he grew up where, the infant mortality rate was extremely high. No shoes, no running water, no electricity. It was very extreme poverty.
Although thanks to those guys, the situation in Omachito has changed quite a bit.
It has.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's also, now they have many more issues with just violence.
Oh, the violence.
And that's, when we talk about, is exile an option for us at this stage, given the things that are happening, the number of
The
kidnappings.
kidnappings.
Yes, the kidnappings are a huge part of it. But there was a time when it's a very rural, very small town where people don't have much.
Yeah.
For a long time we felt that they were immune from the violence that, you associate with Mexico. and
Exactly.
it's not the case anymore.
You are listening to Live from the Heartland Show on WLUW 88.7 Chicago Sound Alliance. We're here every Saturday morning at 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock Central Daylight Time. We encourage you to listen in. Look at older editions of the show at youtube.com/Heartland Media. And we are talking with our friend Kathy McGorty Torres. And you were involved with American Families United. And there are chapters of this organization throughout the country.
There are, but there actually had been a chapter in Illinois several years ago, but it kind of died out. And it wasn't until I went to D.C. in February. I went to some lobby days. We had a great experience. We had 53 visits with legislators, with senators and congressmen. We had a great press conference with Luis Gutierrez, and I just thought it was shameful that we don't have a real presence in Illinois.
So you're the organizer.
I'm working with others.
I'm
but,
sure you are.
Others from the
Because
Heartland.
you have a lot of friends friends and relatives.
Yes, and there's a lot of support around here.
Let me ask a question of this. You know, like immigration, there's a lot of people in the world, and there's a lot of people who have come to the United States. We like to say we have people from everywhere, and what we do here emanates back out around the world. But I think the focus of the immigration law and the issue, the discussion, the fights has a lot over Latino immigrants, mainly from Mexico. This organization, American Families United, is it primarily Mexican and U.S. people? Is it Latino based, or is it multinational?
We have a little bit
multi-ethnic?
We have a little bit of everything. Yeah,
I'm glad.
I mean, honestly, I will say, it's not all Mexican. I can say that.
Yeah.
I mean, but we have couples living in Korea. There's actually a member from Chicago who's living in Korea right now. Now, her husband is Mexican, but they've ended up in Korea of all places. So we have actually families spread out all over the world, because many of these families, when they received a bar of inadmissibility, they chose to look elsewhere. But no, I mean, we have Brasileños, we have folks from Honduras, from Jamaica, it's really Ireland. It's everywhere, and that's one of the things that I feel really strongly about doing. You know, I think that the immigration discussion has become very much, this is a Latino thing, this is a this is a dark-skinned people thing, and I just like to kind of make it obvious that no, this is affecting all kinds of people, even me, because I can see it in people's faces when I'm telling them our story. That, I mean, I always get the response, well, how's that possible?
Yeah, right.
And it's very possible.
Yeah. Well, Kathy, I'm so glad for your activism. Congratulations.
Thank you.
By the way, and welcome and shine on. What happened this week that was good for the cause? Please share that.
The proposal that the Gang of Eight came out with was very good. I mean, essentially everything that American families...
Explain to people what the Gang of Eight is.
So the Gang of Eight, there are 8 senators who have been working on putting together a base proposal for the Senate, first the Senate Judiciary Committee to review, and then it will go to the floor of the Senate. This is supposed to be enormous, comprehensive immigration reform. This is what we've been looking for somebody to do. 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans. It's a bipartisan effort. And this was the week that they were released, the 844 pages. And... but I can say, there are some changes to the diversity visas, family visas, that people that have some concern, but there's a lot of good stuff in there, which is a relief to many people who've been fighting this fight for a long time.
What stuff's in there that we don't like?
It's mostly the programs that are being eliminated. There are some people that, the family visas, especially some in the Asian and the African populations, they're very concerned about the loss. You can't petition for a sibling. So there are some technicalities like that that have
anything
some people
post
concerned.
2011 too.
And there are people concerned. Yes, they had to set a date. So if you've entered since since December 31st, 2011, then you don't qualify. And some are really concerned about like all of the emphasis on border security and what that's going to mean, or e-verify and what that's going to mean. But for those of us in our camp, at least at American Families United, I mean, we just want to get our families together and not have to live in the shadows. For us, it's a huge, this is a huge step forward, but the fight is just starting.
Yeah. Well, is there a way for people to get involved that you want to share?
I would be happy to. Well, if anyone who would be interested in joining American Families United, anyone who's been touched by immigration in this way, they are welcome. We're definitely looking for especially Illinois members, or that's my personal, that's my...
You definitely want to hook up with Kathy McGroarty's group, because this would be
Do you have a website?
Great.
Yes.
We have more questions for you, but why don't you give us the website?
The website is www.americanfamiliesunited.org. So it's pretty simple.
This has been a pretty, we talked at the onset of our show today that it was a pretty hectic week. The Boston stuff going on was really rough. And I just want to raise this question. I mean, these 2 people that allegedly carried it all out, one is now dead, one is wounded, and he's in the hospital under
Tamerlan
capture.
And Dzhokhar Tsarnaev.
And they are, immigrants from Chechnya, we are told. And I'm wondering if, that incident that's been so prominent in all of our lives the last couple of days, you think might have an impact on the immigration bill?
Well, already yesterday when there was a hearing in the Judiciary Committee, in the Senate Judiciary Committee, it's already been mentioned. Like, this is so timely that we're talking about this after the events in Boston. So absolutely, this gives us another thing we have to kind of fight against. I would remind people to keep in mind there was that Costa Rican hero that everyone was talking about who was, a citizen in the middle of it all, who was also an immigrant.
Right.
I mean, immigrants are us. It's like there are good and there's bad.
We be immigrants. Yes,
exactly.
All of us.
But I am concerned about what kind of impact or how often we're going to have to counter that.
Anytime it happens.
Well, and particularly when you consider these were young men who entered the country when they were minors.
When they were 8 or 9 years old.
So are we going to start saying that every minor we're bringing in as
are you
resident?
A potential terrorist?
I mean,
Kathy, you mentioned some people that were a Mexican dad and I guess a Korean mom who had to move to Korea.
Actually, a U.S. mom.
She's a U.S. mom from the Chicago area who's now living in South Korea because they had to find a country that she felt was safe, where she could be working, where they could be living. But they're actually not even technically there permanently. They're there with temporary visas.
Well, what caught my attention was, we will talk sometimes about Chicago and the crossover of ethnic groups and races, religions, how we'll have black Polish people and, Puerto Rican Asian people. And I'm just wondering your sense out there of the number of people in Chicago that probably have one person that's not a